Welcome to Warblog. Warblog is a combination of a blog about modern wars post 1945 and an online hex and counter game. The site specialises in modern warfare from 1946 to date, post World War II. There are currently over 320 games, which is readily growing, that can be played or read for general exploration into the subject of modern war. For example, if we wanted to find out a little bit more about the first battle of N'Djamena in Chad, let's click there, look at the map, a brief written overview. Quite often I'll do videos to cover the gameplay and look at the order of battle, and more importantly a link for where the source comes from. So essentially it's not really a sort of an expert resource from a sort of the written perspective. It's expected that people will sort of do their own research, through other channels. Quite often there's quite a lot of commentary. The main thing here is you've got a map, and then you can just sort of obviously orientate yourself with the map and play the game through. It can be played either alone or against another player anywhere in the world. So essentially what would happen there is one person would sign up and they might play this game. So by playing the game you activate the game into your account. For example, I have here a display that ordinarily can't be seen called My Games, and in My Games there is a list of all the games that I've been playing, and when I finish playing them, for good housekeeping, it's recommended to delete games. So for example I could delete this one, I'm not going to play it again. It helps with server space, but what you'll also see in here are shared games. So in this game, in this situation, this is a game set up by another player, which I've been invited to, and I could play this game online with another player. The game itself is really probably more suited to solo play, so that people can sort of explore the scenarios themselves, play both sides themselves, and play it through critically, without the sort of the sort of the requirement to be competitive, which can lead to rule playing and changes in behaviour in the way that you play it. But it's up to you. I mean, it can be played both ways, and equally well. They're both equally as sort of interesting approaches to take. The game is still in development and currently costs €20, but it will be 50 when it's complete. The game's been in development for about 2 years now, as you can see here. All games can be played any number of times for a yearly €20 subscription. This is the beta mode, so it'll be €50 when it's complete and polished. There's no time scale for when it will be complete. There's a lot of things that need doing that are really more aesthetic. Just little things like the shape of these roads, varied hex terrain features are being developed. Things like the combat screens, they're fairly rudimentary. Let's see whether we can. Well, we're gonna play a game in a little bit, so I'll wait for that. Basically, the new blog posts detailing battles appear sporadically. Typically a rate of 1 or 2 a week, sometimes more. So you'll see down here that it's a sort of almost like a blog format. This is the Shabba II Zaire Middle East 1978 scenario. As you can see, you can click through there, you can see the writing, the order of battle. There's no video in there yet. There's a source, a link to the source where it came from. And they go in order of when they were done. And so this is the very latest one, which is under development. There's no units on there at the moment, so that will be complete soon, and when it is, it will have the little map thing there. But so essentially, if you're signing up, you have to accept that there's no given rate of new games. However, there are plenty of games already for your money to play. You just have to sort of look through and take your pick, really. Some of them are not particularly suited to competitive gaming, and some of them are. So you'll have to decide which ones are playable for you. They're not the games are not balanced in the sense that every game is set up so that either side could win. For example, in this game, there really is not a lot to it. This militant unit wants to drive across the desert from Libya through to Egypt to an objective, and the Egyptian player basically interdicts them with a couple of F-16s, and they don't last, as this video will show. But other games like this, for example, are a lot more involved, a lot more complex, and offer a lot more playability in the traditional sense. So have a look through all the scenarios yourself first to decide, you know, whether or not there's anything that you want to play in there. But generally speaking, I'll do 1 or 2 a week, but sometimes I'll do a lot more. But there is the onus then that I will do not many at all, or slow the rate down or speed the rate up. So there's no sort of given sort of rate of delivery of new games. But generally speaking, it's fairly sort of active in that sense, and I'll see that continuing for a long time. But basically, you can play these games any number of times. So once you're a member, you could sign in and play the Battle of Chamdo 5 or 6 times. The only thing that I ask is, as your games build up in your game portfolio, that you delete some of the older ones because they all take up server space. Currently, what's not in play is a sort of an auto-delete. All games will probably be deleted after a given time. So, you know, if you've played sort of 20 games and you find out all the ones from a month prior have been deleted, then it's just the housekeeping. Basically, the whole system is designed to be easy to play online in your browser. So, you know, if you want to play this game, this is in my game portfolio. You just click on the game. I've got the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham player set up here, so I can maybe just look at this unit here. I don't have much movement left. It's the other person's turn, so we'll move on to the ISIS turn, which are these units here. I'm just going to move something around completely randomly. But for example, I can just use a mouse and drag that unit to there. It's designed to be just simple, and if I want to attack these units here, I just move into there, and as you can see, there's a combat screen, and I just select which units I want to use, and then I do an attack. I'm not going to do that attack in this instance. You can see the combat screen is quite rudimentary. That's another thing that is sort of to be developed, but it's going to be exactly the same thing. You know, nice big buttons and something a little more attractive, but that's not anywhere sort of like in the immediate pipeline. So, but as you can see, it's all quite simple and straightforward. You just use your mouse and you drag things across. I'll go into a little more detail about that in a little bit. Basically, there are a lot of advanced rules, but they're all designed to have no major detrimental impact if they're not observed. So essentially, there could be rules in here that you think, oh, I should use that. For example, you can siege places, you can lay mines, you can lay bridges, you can have leaders. But if you don't use the leaders, for example, there's no real detriment. It's not as though, for example, in many games, you need to have command to be able to move your units. You won't ever find yourself not able to move your unit because you've got no command points or you're out of supply or something like that. It's just to make it simple and easy to use so that you can't really go wrong. It's online, you just move you use your mouse to move the units around, and it's as simple as that. You should be able to pick it up, but if you want to go deeper, there's a lot more. You know, for example, there's air power, air units, air mobile units, paratroopers. There's insurgent units, irregular units, police units, protester units, refugee units. You know, all the sort of added things that you might encounter in modern warfare. But we'll get onto that in a bit. Most of the game mechanics are complete, and the basic set of rules can be read online here, and I'll be going through this in a bit, ever so quickly. So essentially, you know, if you want to look at radar, you can go down there. Radar will increase air defense across the board, and you know, you can click the back button, go back to where you were. So it's something that's under development. It's certainly not a complete set of rules, but it's a lot better than it used to be. So if you want to talk about air insertion, air extraction, disruptions, leaders, morale, you know, there's a morale set up here. It's very simple, as you can see, but these things will be sort of developed over time. Not a lot in the way of pictures, which is something else, but I do have a little picture there, which is the symbol for the multiplayer functionality for 2 players, essentially. So there's a set of rules. If we actually have a look at the terrain types, you can see here that you get a complete list of terrain types. So this is bush, desert, and if you want to sort of jump through that a little quicker, you know, if you're looking for, if you want to quickly jump through to swamp, you can see that's the map tile for swamp, and these are the unit movement costs. So if you're in there, you get a ×2 multiplier for your defense for some reason. Some of these things are sort of, you know, to be reviewed later. But you know, for artillery to move in, it costs 20, but which means they'll never be able to move in. So motorised units will never be able to move into swamp. Nor will artillery. The movement is just too great, and that's one of the ways that limitations are done like that. Armour can move through, but it basically takes all its movement. Infantry, it takes all their movement, etc., etc. And you know, if you want to look at hills, similarly. You know, you get the same sort of information there. If you want to sort of look at how artillery works, you know, etc., etc. It's a rule book. So essentially, let me just give you a couple of examples. I suppose I'm signed in. Let's suppose I want to play. I'm looking for a game that has an element of air power, and I'm pretty sure I did one fairly recently. Okay, I think this game here has some air power in it. Yeah, there's the Indian Ganats, and there's the Pakistan F-86 Sabres. However, they don't come in until turn 8, so it's not going to be much good playing that to demonstrate air power. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Let's see what we've got in here. Sod's Law, I probably deleted that game, which I think I had in the portfolio as a game I played, and now it's gone. Although there's this game here, but that's a multiplayer. So anyway, so I'm going to make it easy, and I'm just going to play this game here. Now in this game, essentially, to give you a little bit more of a perspective on how things work, obviously you can see that we've got the general description. The FNLC invade Shabba province on the 8th of March 1977, etc., etc. A bit more information and the link. The unit list on either side. There's some air power in there, which we can probably use in a bit. They come on turn 4, so not immediately. But what we're looking at here are obviously the hex tiles, so we can see that these are green. If we look that up, we'll probably find that that is scrub or bush or something like that. You can look the movement points up. Roads will essentially reduce the cost to move through a particular terrain, so essentially that will generally be a percentage. So if it costs, say, 3 to move into through a scrub hex, the road will possibly make that a 1.5, so you can move twice as fast. So you know, this is significant when you're looking at hill and mountain hexes, where you know even though it's a road, it's still slower than a road across a plain. So obviously you've got rivers, and these large ones, these bright blue ones are major rivers, and these are minor rivers. You can't cross the major rivers, but you can cross a minor river, but your turn ends. I'm not going to explain fully all of the rules, just some of the nuances of what we've got in front of us here. Obviously you can see roads, but these are little tracks, so it's the same method for calculating movement rates, but it's the reduction's not as great. Quite often it's almost just as well to just go across country. You know, from a game, it's not sort of brilliant in that regards. But certainly you get the general feel for what things are. So there's map annotations. So for example, you can see that this is Zaire, which no longer exists as a country now. But this is Angola. We've got that little chunk there, and Zambia. Obviously, you can see these things here. But what we've also got here are the objective, highlighted objective features. These will be red for one side and green for another. And so what we can see here visibly, straight off, without really reading much, by inference, we know that pretty much we've got to take these red ones. So this is not an objective, so it's really not part of our strategy to take that. So essentially, we know what the objectives are, and so we can just pretty much go straight into play mode. Play this game. So we're going to go in and play it. Maybe not completely folly through, well, certainly not, but just to give you an idea. So I've gone into play mode, and the environment changes. One thing that's worth noting is there's no adverts in play mode. You might see adverts on the site. I have an ad blocker, so I never see them at all, but if you're looking at the game, you're thinking, well, I'd like to play this, but it's full of adverts. There's no adverts once you're a member in the gaming environment. So I can just drag my mouse, move him into there. Now I can put my mouse over there and I can see that he still has a certain amount of movement left, 2.25, so that cost 75, 0.75 movement. I don't try to encourage people to sort of get too bogged down in the exact details. You just move things until you can't move them any further, but you've got a general sense. I mean, if this is 0.75, then I can move about 4 times along a road. So that's 1. I could probably move 2, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4. In this instance, I'm going to try and push forward. Now, I'm guessing that I don't have much movement left. 0, so that's correct. So pushing forward. Now, one thing that's key to the way I sort of run the game is the drawing tool. Now, this is not particularly relevant to actually playing the game, but if, like me, you like to do videos of the playthroughs or prepare screenshots for after-action reports, or just generally hone your thinking, then there's a drawing tool which is particularly useful. So you click the X here. This is only an X at the moment because I've yet to decide how I want this pop-up bar to work. So I click it again, it goes. So you've got a toolbar that could go all the way along here with features as they're added. Just as a quick run through, this is for mines, this is for bridge laying, this is for the drawing tool, this is for multiplayer. So if I want to play it with someone else, I will click that. Here I want the drawing tool, so I click it, and now I'm in drawing mode, so I can't move any of the counters. But what I can do is I can sort of say, well, my line of attack is going to come across here, so I can start drawing arrows and things like that. And okay, it's not that brilliant, but it does actually look good on the screen, and it can help your thinking. You know, so you can sort of say, well, we're going to move into here, create a front holding line there, and then, you know, leave it from there. Now, if you're playing the other side, the Zaim player, you would say, well, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, move along this way. I'm going to cut straight across here. I'm going to bring him down here to take that, you know, to sort of, and then follow through here. So you can use the arrows. You can use the drawing tool to sort of, you know, put in to do these sorts of arrows. And generally speaking, it's a sort of feature that is particularly rare in other games, but is particularly key in the way the approach that Worblock takes to its gaming environment, in that it helps you with your thinking and communicating your thinking, which is hopefully sort of, you know, a big sort of part of the draw to Worblock and becoming a member, really. So that's the drawing tool. Okay, I'll switch it off like that. There's also, let's suppose I'm looking at it like this, there's also this map feature which basically will toggle the units on and off. So if I wanted to look at what the heck's under here, I can see that's Sandoa town. This is particularly useful when you've got a lot of units. For example, I might be confused at what the road network is there. I mean, does the road network go from there to there and then up there, or what? I can click that, I can see, oh no, the road network does go straight across. So now, with that knowledge, I can start moving forward, you know, preparing turns. Quite often you can't see the rivers and things like that, so that's another little useful feature. So I'm going to just continue to sort of move some of these units around. I seem to be going all over the place with my mouse there at the moment. But it's quite quick. You can't do group movements, which is something that would be nice, but to be quite honest, my own personal preference on it is it takes away a lot of the kudos of actually playing the game. I'm very much a sort of tabletop person where you would pick each counter up and then you would count the moves out one at a time, moving one at a time, etc., etc. I don't think I can move any further along there. I'm just going to move all of these units here, and then I'm going to end turn. So now it's the Zain player's turn. And now, I mean, if you read the book, if you read the background into this battle, you'll understand why the units are sort of as they are. You're just thinking, well, gosh, you know, they're not going to win this number of units. Well, essentially, that's the historic narrative. So, and yeah, you're not really going to win. So you've got to decide what you're going to do with the first turn. For example, here, it could be a very sort of schoolboy mentality to, you know, start moving this unit down here and try and contest that. But you know, once you get your strategic hat on, you might think, oh, hang on, I don't want to go in that direction at all. And so you'll just sit there. Now, this place here, Mutshafdasha, is actually a mining town. Has particular importance for the I think the Belgian interests in the country. And so you might say, well, I want to defend this. This is important, whereas Sandoa is not. But even so, there's still not a lot there. But you might want to say move in that way. Now, I could move straight across here, but I want to stay on the road. So I'm actually in there protecting that place, and I'm going to move everything down towards it. But I'm going to leave him there, and that's that. But the thing is, you're coming up with a strategy and a plan of action for both sides, thinking as both sides, but alternatively you could be playing it separately against another person. This game does get quite exciting. The Zion player eventually does win because they get a lot of reinforcements, but these are things that I'm not going to start explaining too much now. So that's essentially how easy it is to move things around. Let me just see if I can find a few more examples of things that might be interesting. Now there's a relatively new feature here called Wars, and so let's look at the search feature first. I can search for things. So if I want to search for, I don't know, there's quite a few countries. If I want to search for something in Biafra, for example, I'll click Biafra, and then I get all the Biafran campaign games, and there's 3 of them. Now there's 67, 67, 67. So if I wanted to, well, let's suppose I wanted to look at. I can do it from year. I'm not going to actually do this. I could search by key term. I could search by country, but I could also search by war. This is a relatively new feature. So if I wanted to go in there and look at everything associated with the Arab-Israeli War 1948, and this list will get longer, I can just click in there, and I can see that there is 1 battle in there at the moment. I know there are a lot more, they just haven't been put into the system yet. Let's look at another one where I know I've got pretty much everything that exists, the Iran-Iraq War 1980 to 88. So again, you can see here that there are quite a few scenarios from that war. So you can actually go through and you can look at particular campaigns, and then you can look at them in their sort of temporal perspective, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do here, and I'm not sure how many games are in the under the Vietnam War, but if I click Vietnam as a country, which is also another option, I should probably get quite a lot. So what you can see here is that there are over 20 Vietnam games, and what I sort of want to do is, so this is not Vietnam War, this is the Sino-Vietnamese War, and it's actually not complete. Let's have a look at this. So again, there's the write-up. I'm looking for something that has some air insertion. Let's have a look at this. No, I'm not sure. Let's just play it anyway, see what sort of options it gives us. North Vietnam player goes first. Essentially, they're carrying out an ambush on here. I won't go into the details, but they attack this camp, which is a Special Forces camp, I believe. But they're only attacking it because they want to draw other US troops towards the camp to help out, and that's what these units are sitting there for in an ambush. It's quite an interesting scenario. They're all interesting once you get into them. But I'm not going to move because, well, let's just move a few things here and there. And obviously you can see how these things move. These are air defense units. So we'll end that first turn. See what happens when the Americans come on. So nothing much happens in that first turn. We'll move on to the second turn. We won't do any movement. So what we've got now is some air power, as you can see down here. Now I can put air power into air superiority, but the North Vietnamese don't have any. They don't have any aircraft, so that's pointless. But what I could do is I could say, okay, well this is a nice big stack. I'm going to attack it, or these units are going to attack the camp next. So, but basically I can use my air power, so I can come in here. Now, if I had more units, I could see which ones I'm using. I only have one, so I'm going to use that. But as you can see, he's got air defense units. Now these will have a factor in this battle. They will affect this battle. So, but let me just see what happens. So essentially here, I've gone in, I've done 0.6 damage on this first unit, No effect on the second one, 0.7 on this one, and no effect on this one. Essentially, there's no indication that any of the air defence had any effect on me. If it did, it would be noted there. For example, it could say quarter effectiveness, half effectiveness, 2/3, 3/4 effectiveness, aborted or shot down. If it's shot down, I lose it forever. And it can be, fairly hefty when there's a lot of air defence, and that is quite a lot. So I would have expected something, but depending on how air superiority works, I could be up against other aircraft trying to do these these ground interdictions. There's lots of other things in the game, other units. For example, there's bombers; they behave very differently. There's helicopters; again, they behave very differently. Mainly in the way that they're affected by ground air defence units. So helicopters are quite easy to take out. The aircraft that you just saw, ground attack aircraft, they're not as easy. They're a lot harder to take out with just sort of even surface-to-air missiles, or the sort of rockets that they might take a helicopter out with, or 50 cal machine guns. But the bombers, which are high altitude, just considered to be high altitude bombers, are essentially immune to just about anything. But obviously not immune to enemy fighter aircraft or enemy surface-to-air missiles, and proper surface-to-air missiles. I'm not talking about rocket launchers, the small-scale stuff that takes out helicopters. But anyway, you'll get into all of that. So we've done the search. This war thing pretty much covers the same sort of thing. This is only what I've flagged up at the moment. There's a lot more that I haven't flagged up, and this is, as you can see here, this is written on the 22nd of December, so that's just over a week ago. But basically, as you can see, there are over 300 games, over 320 games, nearly 330 games. All of which come from their own particular scenarios, but they're in particular periods and wars. Just looking for something that's, for example, this is the Mozambique Civil War. This is the Rwandan Civil War, etc. So that will be flagged up under the Rwandan Civil War. This will be under the Yemen Civil War, the Iraq Civil War, etc., etc., and those lists will grow. So essentially, that's an overview to the game. Let's just have maybe one quick look at the about. You don't have to really read this, but it started off quite a while back with a lot of features that were essentially incomplete. Now the incomplete features, and it had a little section here of incomplete, so I'd started them but not completed them, and these are to come. So things like weather, I probably won't do that. Victory conditions, probably won't do that. But the majority of things that were pending, over the last year or so, have been done. Stack churning. Some of these things are really quite basic, but delayed units, reinforcements, combat flanking, depression recovery, unit combinations against various units, so armour a lot stronger against infantry, digging in entrenchments, fortifications, islands, fuller artillery rolls, entering ZOCs, into movement, bridge laying, air patrols, air mobile, paratroopers, online multiplayer, land features. All of this stuff's pretty much done, so it is becoming a feature-rich game. As I said, the main principle is that you can play everything online. So if you remember, you just think, well, this looks good. So thinking, well, that looks good, you can just go in and click play now, and you're instantly in the play mode, playing the People's Republic of China. So we'll start to move our units. Simple as that. So there's not much more to say. If you want to become a member, sign up. Sign up, sort of, now, pay your €20. As I said, it will go up, but please note it's a game that's being developed slowly and without any particular momentum, although it has had considerable momentum for the last 2 years. But I have sort of placed that on a sort of, it's a conditional sort of manner, in the sense that it's not my main business. It's certainly not massively sort of profitable thing for me. So it's more of a sideline, but it's a key interest, and so the rate and quality of developments will reflect that. But currently it's a yearly fee of €20. But the special bonus here is that I currently don't have the at least I'm not sure I do. I think what you'll find is if you pay now, you will not be suspended after 1 year. It just can't carry on until I got enough players to actually warrant the annual subscription. But that will come into play. That's basically a feature that is to come. Also, another feature that might excite another sort of type of player is the print and play feature. So all these games will essentially, probably in a not too distant future, be print and playable. So if you wanted to sort of say, well, this Battle of Chora looks really interesting, but I don't want to play it online, I'd like to print that. So you can print the map out, you can print the counters out, and you'll have a separate, more unique, focused set of rules to help you play that, on your tabletop, etc., etc. But anyway, so that's pretty much that. If you're thinking, wow, this looks really interesting, how does it, can I see it working? Well, obviously I've got some links up here. I have a varied number of links just to sort of spread the net across social platforms. There's a forum here, a message board type environment. As you can see, it's not well used at all, but I add things in here. This is a funny one. Generally focused on games. If you want to find a partner for multiplayer, there's a sticky at the top. So you could sign up there, say, hey, I want to meet someone to play one of these games. Generally speaking, you have to use your own initiative to find other players, maybe some of your friends. But the message board there is to support you. Obviously, you can use Facebook and things like that. Not a lot of people playing at the moment, so there's no sort of active community, but you could maybe be part of starting that. So essentially we've got the message boards, also Twitter, where I sort of tweet new games, Facebook, if that's your thing, but also YouTube, and the general significance of the YouTube channel is that, let's get rid of that. This is the December 16 game introduction, which this video is going to replace. But essentially, you can come in here and look at all of the videos that I've done, and I don't think it says how many I've done, but I've done a lot. And as you can see here, not a lot of views on them, but they are actually interesting videos from each of the games. So if you were sort of thinking, well, I want to look at this game here, you can see me playing them basically. I'll just turn that sound off, but you can watch me play these things, and generally listen to me talk about the games and my thoughts on them. As you see, using a drawing tool to demonstrate the strategy that I'm using. Using a drawing tool again. Lots of using the drawing tool to explain strategies and things like that. But the bottom line is, if you look down the right side here, there's lots of games, and I've done lots of videos. I think there's over 300 videos, and some of them, most of the videos are actually linked in to the gaming environment. So for example, I think I've done a video for this one, so I've done this and I've done a video for it. Now, the videos are really only light-hearted. There's no specific formula for them. Sometimes I'll end up talking about fairly different things, but essentially I'll do a video for this game. I try to keep them a little more sort of on the on the mark, so to speak, by actually outlining what the game is all about, and explaining what the battle was all about, a bit of the history, and then a couple of turns playing it through. So And that's pretty much that. As I said, it's still under development, but if that sounds interesting and exciting to you, then sign up and give it a whirl. I look forward to playing with you, so to speak. Cheerio, mate.